Hi everyone, welcome back to Bees Creations. In today's video, I will be sharing the making of this beautiful top using McCall's 7752. Let's get right into it. I've already cut out all the pattern pieces and the fabric pieces. I've also cut all the interfacing pieces to make this top. I'm starting with pinning each bra cup and stitch it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Pin bra cups together at the center front. Stitch 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now pin upper back to upper side at the side edge and stitch it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm putting this aside to start working on the knot bodice overlay. Now hem the curved edges. And that's how that looks. To gather the side edge, I made 2 rows of basting stitches, then pull the thread to form the gather. With right side together, pin the upper side back to the overlay, then base stitch it. Now pin the upper back to the bra cups, making sure that you have all 3 layers there, then stitch it. Now let's work on our midriff. Pin midriff back to the midriff front together at the side seams, then stitch it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now I'm running a stitch at the upper edge of the midriff to stay stitched. Next, pin midriff to the bra, matching side seams and centers. Stitch it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now let's work on our peplum. Pin back peplum to upper front peplum at the side seams, then stitch it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now stay stitch the upper edge of the peplum like so. With right side together, pin peplum to midriff, matching side seams and centers. Stitch it 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, trim it, and then press the seam towards midriff. Now stitching the zipper. Make a basting stitch from the top down to the big circle, then using a normal stitch to finish. Pin the zipper to the back seam, making sure the zipper teeth align to the seam line. Move everything to one side. Stitch it on the seam line only. Now open the seam line using a seam ripper. Open the zipper, then stitch very close to the zipper teeth. That's how that looks, a clean, finished zipper. I went ahead and I stitched the bodice lining the same way I stitched the bodice earlier. Stitch the bra cups, the upper back, and the midriff. Now measure down the boning piece to the lining side seam allowance. Remove the boning from the casing. Then stitch the casing along the lining seam line. Stitch the casing on top of the stitching line. And this is the finished look. Press the lower edge of the lining to 5/8 of an inch, then trim it to 3/8 of an inch. With right side together, pin lining to the top. Stitch it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then trim it. Next, understitch the lining. That's how that looks. Slip stitch the pressed lower edge over the seam. And that's how that looks. To get started with the sleeves, making sure I use a fabric marker to trace the stitch lines. Stitch long edges of the sleeve together. Turn it right side out and press it. Bringing the seam line to the center, then stitch along the stitch line to form casing for the elastic. Insert the elastic through the casing using a safety pin. Then baste the edges. Now stitch sleeves together at the underarm side seams. Pin the sleeve on outside of the bra sides. Stitch it for about 1/2 inch on either side of the side seam. Now narrow hem the lower edge of the top. That's the finished look. I really love how this turned out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.